welcome everyone to Canadian Yorker here. So for today, we are going to be doing a bit of turnaround now, because I've been talking. I know I've been talking a lot about American football and the NFL season over the past few days. So I decided to do a switch up, and I'm doing it's the opposite now. I'm talking about football, not American football, but football, FUTBOL, football, soccer football. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the future World Cup qualifiers and a future World Cup setting. So apparently, I was just scouring the internet today, and I happened to come across an article that I had bookmarked on my reading list. And the article actually mentioned something interesting, which I never really looked into. But I wanted to bring it to you guys because some of you might be more into soccer. So for you soccer fans out there, this is something that should interest you. And so I am talking to you guys about the 2034 World Cup qualifier that's going to be happening in Saudi Arabia. So there are a couple of articles that we're going to be looking at and talking about the World Cup. So last year, in November 30th, 2024, Saudi Arabia was selected to be one of the places. Well, it is selected to be the place where the World Cup is going to be happening. The men's World Cup is going to be happening in Saudi Arabia. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, and apparently there are some things that are going on which are kind of being swept under the rug in Saudi Arabia. So here it is, guys. So November 30th, 2024, this article is written from amnestyinternational.org. It says, FIFA, so the title of the article is Global FIFA produces whitewash of Saudi Arabia World Cup bid and ignores old report to provide compensation for migrant workers in Qatar. So according to the article, it says, reacting to FIFA's evaluation of Saudi Arabia's bid for the 2034 Men's World Cup, as expected from Steve Cockburn, Amnesty International's head of labor rights and sport, said, quote, as expected, FIFA's evaluation of Saudi Arabia's World Cup bid is an astonishing whitewash of the country's atrocious human rights record. There are no meaningful commitments that will prevent workers from being exploited, residents from being evicted, or activists from being arrested. Continuing, Steve Cockburn also said, by ignoring clear evidence of severe human rights risks, FIFA is likely to bear much responsibility for the violations and abuses that will take place over the coming decade. Fundamental human rights reforms are urgently required in Saudi Arabia, or the 2034 World Cup will be inevitably tarnished by exploitation, discrimination, and repression. So, continuing, the article says, reacting to FIFA's publication of the long-delayed independent report on providing remedy for migrant workers who suffered abuses connected to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, said, quote, Steve Cockburn said, quote, it is no mystery why FIFA has sought to keep this independent report hidden for so long. It clearly concludes that the organization has a responsibility to ensure remedy, including compensation to hundreds of thousands of workers who suffered abuses connected to the 2022 World Cup. It validates what human rights organizations, trade unions, fans, and now even FIFA's own human rights subcommittee have been saying. It is time for FIFA to pay up. Close quote. Continuing, he said, quote, it is incredible that in the same week that FIFA has finally published this report, it has not only launched a legacy union with no remedy for workers, but also waved through Saudi Arabia's World Cup bid, regardless of the likely human costs. Unless FIFA finally takes action to compensate workers and Saudi Arabia introduces real human rights reforms, history will repeat itself and workers again will pay the price. So here's the background to this. It says FIFA provided Saudi Arabia a medium risk rating for human rights in its evaluation of its bid for the 2034 World Cup. This is despite evidence provided by Amnesty International and the Sports and Rights Alliance in recent reports that severe and likely human rights risks were not addressed in the bid's human rights strategies, which did not meet FIFA's own human rights bidding requirements. Amnesty and 10 other organizations also highlighted in October how the independent human rights assessment produced by A.S.&H. Clifford Chance was deeply flawed and omitted key human rights issues. Many organizations, including Amnesty International, campaigned for FIFA to pay compensation to workers and families who suffered exploitation in preparation of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. In March 2023, FIFA agreed to commission an independent report to determine whether it had a responsibility to do so. Although finalized in December 2023, the report was only published at midnight on December 29, 2024. It concludes that FIFA does have a responsibility to ensure remedy for workers. I'm sorry for that noise in the background. Alongside other actors, a position that is endorsed by FIFA's Human Rights Subcommittee. On Wednesday, November 27th, however, FIFA launched its legacy fund for the 2022 World Cup without any compensation for workers included. So, interesting article talking about the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia. Now, there's additional articles that have also been talking about Saudi Arabia's human rights abuses and also FIFA's if FIFA will contribute towards helping workers. So there's this another article on December 19th, about a month later, December 19th, 2024, red card for FIFA's Saudi World Cup. This article is written from humanrightswatch.org. It says here, no one can predict which team will win the Men's World Cup Soccer Championship in 2034, but based on current conditions, we know the biggest losers will be the millions of migrant workers subject to egregious abuses while building stadiums, transit infrastructure, and other facilities for host country Saudi Arabia over the next decade. On December 11th, the 211 members of the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, will hold a vote in an extraordinary Congress to settle who will host the 2034 World Cup. The conclusion is already known because Saudi Arabia is the only bidder and has received a glowing score from FIFA in the evaluation of its bid. FIFA doesn't disclose how much it profits from granting its flagship tournament to countries with dismal human rights records. Those most affected by this decision, Saudi Arabia's 13.4 million migrant workers. Saudi citizens, players, fans, and journalists have no vote. FIFA and its Saudi government partners boasted recently that Saudi Arabia's evaluation of 419.8 out of 500 is the highest ever score in FIFA World Cup history. The deeply flawed FIFA evaluation process further downplayed systemic human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia with a medium risk rating. That's a quote-unquote medium risk rating. FIFA gave this quote-unquote highest score ever to a country with no labor unions, no press freedom, and a government that is deeply repressive and punishes any dissent. A quote from Lina Al-Hathul. We cannot say that Saudi Arabia is a medium risk country, unquote, given that it has become a pure police state. So that's Lina Al-Hathul, head of monitoring and advocacy at ALSC for Human Rights, whose sister, Lou Jane, was jailed and tortured for advocating for women's right to drive. This month, FIFA leaders also rejected the organization's own independent report that confirms FIFA, quote, has a responsibility to compensate families of thousands of migrant workers who died building FIFA's last World Cup in Qatar in 2022. Like Qatar, Saudi Arabia operates under the abusive labor sponsorship system known as kafala, where migrant workers pay large recruitment fees, often have passports taken and wages stolen by employers, and cannot change jobs or leave the country freely. Labor unions, strikes, and protests are banned. Saudi authorities do not adequately protect migrant workers from dangerous conditions such as extreme heat. The unprecedented scale of the Saudi World Cup plans makes the potential for labor rights catastrophes even than for the Qatar World Cup. The Saudi hosting documents promise to construct in the deadly desert heat, as in Qatar, 11 new and 4 refurbished stadiums, 185,000 new hotel rooms, and to carry out airport, road, and rail construction. This infrastructure deficit will rest entirely on the backs of migrant workers to build. Many of these World Cup projects will be accomplished with funding from the Saudi state-run $925 billion public investment fund and from oil and gas behemoth Aramco, FIFA's new major world provider. The hundreds of billions of dollars in construction come with a high human cost. A new Human Rights Watch report found that 884 migrant workers from Bangladesh died in Saudi Arabia between January and July 2024, a 6-month period. 80% of these deaths were uninvestigated, attributed to natural causes, and not eligible for compensation. Human Rights Watch wrote to FIFA President Gianni Infantino on November 4, 2024, documenting widespread labor abuses on giga projects in Saudi Arabia that will be part of the World Cup infrastructure. FIFA has not responded. Winning the right to host is an effort championed by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who has made clear that the FIFA World Cup is a centerpiece of the Saudi national sports washing strategy to project a reformist image of the country while covering up its human rights abuses. This is a quote: "If sports washing is going to increase my GDP by 1%, then we will continue doing sports washing." The de facto, close quote, the de facto Saudi leader said in an interview with Fox Sports last year. He said, "I don't care." But FIFA should care. Awarding Saudi Arabia the World Cup violates FIFA's own human rights rules. In 2016, facing a corruption crisis, FIFA put in place of specific human rights standards for itself and countries hosting the games, including protections against forced labor. These reforms were supposed to keep the tournament away from the worst human rights violators. FIFA also pledged an ongoing due diligence process to identify, address, evaluate, and communicate the risks of involvement with adverse human rights impacts. Close quote. Promising to make every effort to uphold its international human rights responsibilities. Close quote. Yet not a single migrant worker, victim of human rights crimes, torture survivor, jailed women's rights defender, or Saudi civil society member was consulted for FIFA's supposedly independent human rights assessment. FIFA's bid evaluation report doesn't even mention the historic forced labor complaint against the Saudi government filed by the trade union BWI at the International Labour Organization ILO in June of this year, 2024. A similar complaint about Qatar in 2014 spurred labor reforms in the country, although too late to help thousands of migrant workers who died. In 2023, FIFA was forced to cancel the sponsorship it sold to the Saudi state-run tourism company Visit Saudi after protests by women players. In October 2023, more than 100 top women players published an open letter protesting FIFA's lucrative sponsorship deal with the Saudi state oil giant Aramco. Already, 2 United States senators had called for FIFA to pick a different host for the 2034 World Cup. FIFA needs to cancel the vote and back athletes and human rights over profiteering from Saudi sports washing. Every sponsor, business, broadcaster, and national team associated with the Saudi World Cup will be tainted by widespread labor and other abuses unless wholesale human urgent human rights reforms are implemented. FIFA's decision to award Saudi Arabia the 2034 World Cup is an unforgivable betrayal of basic human rights that risks migrant workers' lives. It deserves a red card. So there's an article written December 19th, 2024, about last year, like a few weeks ago. And I just want to follow up with the article that just came out this month. Here it is, written January 12th, 2025, just 2 days ago. Another article came out. This article was written on just by the Associated Press. So in this article it says the 2034 World Cup visitors will live in a bubble, not see a real life, Saudi rights activist says. So it says here, football fans visiting Saudi Arabia for the 2034 World Cup will live in a bubble that does not reflect real life there, a Saudi rights activist warned on Thursday, after FIFA confirmed the kingdom as the 2034 tournament host on Wednesday. So it's already been finalized that Saudi Arabia is already the host. Last week Wednesday, the football body president Gianni Infantino acknowledged the world will be watching to see positive social change. Human rights groups believe migrant workers' lives will be at risk building stadiums and other projects for the World Cup. Saudi Arabia's laws limiting freedoms for women and LGBTQ plus people have been criticized at the United Nations Human Rights Council. So Lina Al-Hathul, the Saudi activist with the London-based rights group Al-Ask, said, quote, Western people will be very safe. They will see a bubble of what Saudi Arabia is. So his sister, Lujain Al-Hathul, was jailed for 3 years after campaigning to end the Saudi ban on women driving that was lifted in 2018 and lives there under a travel ban. Saudi Arabia today is a pure police state, quote from Lina Al-Hathul, claims, under the crown of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, whose close working ties to Infantino were key to getting the World Cup without a rival bid. The Crown Prince has really managed, Lina Al-Hathul said, the Crown Prince has really managed to create this bubble where people only see entertainment and they don't see the reality on the ground. No one will see tortures in prisons and no one will see executions. You also have the jails full of people just for tweets. Saudi officials stressed over during the 15-month bid campaign, made mostly opaque by FIFA, that the kingdom is modernizing fast and hosting football's biggest event will drive more change. Hamad al-Balawi said, quote, we're very proud of the society we are today, from the 2034 World Cup bid team, said on Wednesday in Riyadh, stating the kingdom's goals are to make the global citizens, and to welcome guests from all around the world. Only Norway, of FIFA's 211-member federation, opposed how the 2034 decision was made by acclaim on Wednesday. 2 years ago, on the eve of the World Cup in Qatar, Infantino accused Europeans of hypocrisy, giving moral lessons to other regions and cultures. On Wednesday, the English Football Association said it got promises from Saudi officials before giving support. The English FA said in a statement, they assured us that they are fully committed to providing a safe and welcome environment for all fans, including LGBTQ plus fans. 2 days before the vote, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with Prince Mohammed in Riyadh and said Saudi Arabia was a key partner in his number one mission of economic growth. Starmer, who is an Arsenal fan, said he hoped to watch a game with the Crown Prince on a future visit to London. Lina Al-Hathul said, you have some changes, she said, though, noting more freedoms for Saudi women to choose what to wear, but they are not institutional, they're not fundamental, and they're not for everyone. So, guys, there's the article talking about the 2034 World Cup and the controversy that's going on with it. Apparently, Saudi Arabia does have human rights abuses that goes on. Now, I'm not somebody that's too familiar with it, but I do know that it does happen. It's different country, different world, different system, different laws. Not like here in the West where we have more freedoms. But it's just different. It's a different system. But just bringing everybody this news, talking about the future World Cup in 2034. So I wanted to just kind of diverge from football, and this is exactly what bringing the news to you about the future World Cup happening in 2034 for the Men's World Cup. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.